And has a rich experience of more than 15 years in business development and key account management, driving strategic initiatives and delivering result. His superior business development and client relationship management skills have enabled him to handle several Fortune 500 firms in perfumery, food and spirits industry and develop brands from concept to completion. Mr. Jatin Arora sir is currently the Director of Sales and Marketing for Piramal Glass US operations. He has been with the Piramal Group for the last 16 years. He joined the company in 2004 and relocated to the United States in 2006. He has served the company in various positions and now leads the sales and marketing efforts of the company for the North America and Canada region. Jatin sir has completed his bachelor's degree in accounting and finance from University of Rajasthan. Further, he joined IMDR in the year 2000 to pursue his MBA degree in international business. He is also a diplomate in insurance management, business administration and management general from Symbiosis Pune. Prior to joining Piramal Group, he had a brief stint at Tetra Pak based out of Pune, India. As a packaging and branding expert, he has spent his entire career in the packaging industry and has been instrumental in bringing a lot of packaging ideas from concept to completion. Working with major companies like L'Oreal, P&G, Pepsi, Bacardi, Diageo, to name a few. Apart from that, he serves as a board member for RCP Management and has been involved in several other philanthropic and community outreach programs. It's my immense pleasure to introduce such a prestigious alumnus of IMDR and once again welcome him back to IMDR virtually. Sir, we all are excited to hear you share your experience and wisdom, and we look forward to a value addition session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for this introduction. And first of all, good evening to everyone on a Saturday evening. I'm sure you have better things to do on a Saturday evening than probably listening to a seminar on COVID-19. But I'm happy and glad that whoever could join. Firstly, thank you to the director of IMDR, Dr. Shikha Jain, for thinking and making this global impact series relevant in today's times, and also to the faculty of IMDR, Miss Dr. Nagre, and whoever has worked on coordinating with the alumnus and getting things lined up. I know it's a lot of activity at the back end, but I'm pretty sure that students will definitely gain some good valuable insights out of it. I think there's some background now. If whoever is unmuted could mute it, please. So let me start this presentation. So the topics I'm going to cover in today's presentation would be about, I was told to speak about United States specifically on the COVID-19, how, US is dealing with it, some sector specific discussion based on what has been done by the government. So I have structured it in three specific parts. One is what the actions which the government has taken, some sector specific discussion on different industries, some of them in which we deal directly, and some of them which we know through our ancillary dealings with such sectors. And then, what as individuals we can do about this particular pandemic, and what we can do to stay relevant. And then at the end of this session, we can have question answer sessions. So three-part, 5 slides presentation, not very long, and I would not bore you with hundreds of slides, so just bear with me. So just to give you a brief background about what the United States government did as far as the COVID-19. So this pandemic started almost around March, US went into a lockdown, say around 15th of March onwards. It was unplanned, like in most countries, as we saw the transmission rates rising, and the government had to take certain actions. I mean, it's a very large economy. Just to give you a rough idea about the GDP, US GDP is about more than $20 trillion. And to have such the world's largest economy going through a pandemic means it has rippling effects across the globe. Any government, whether it is in India, whether it is in United States, primarily focuses on four things. One, controlling the pandemic; B, stabilizing the system, by which I mean financial markets, by which I mean anything which is having a direct impact because of the COVID-19. Stabilizing the businesses, because businesses are a large part of the economy in terms of the employment they create. And finally, and most importantly, the residents, because at the end of the day they have to control the mortality rate. Having said that, some of the steps what the government took back in March was closure across industries and sectors. Most people were allowed to work from home. All the retail malls, all the cinema chains, all the non-essential activities were told to shut down. Now, in US, there is a very clear definition of what is essential services and what is non-essential services. For example, medical is considered as essential, food is considered as essential, but possibly like a gym or a restaurant, those are not considered essential. So chains like Walmart, chains like Target, chains like Costco, all those were allowed to open for people to shop around, but anything which the government has deemed as non-essential were told to close down. A very large amount of efforts of government were actually spent on in terms of the hospital capacity. Again, one thing in a pandemic is avoiding the spreading. We had since everybody was on lockdown, I think that helped in terms of avoiding the spreading. uh, Now that is something which is from an immediate reaction standpoint. Now, back in March, there was when this pandemic started, the stock market actually started to behave the way it is supposed to behave in terms of the news. So we had almost a 30% drop in the financial markets, and I think Feds took some decision, but the market was actually stabilized and it has recovered. In fact, it is actually doing very well considering what has happened to the economy. Some other things which the government is doing is vaccine research and development. I can give you examples of many companies who have received funding from US government in terms of buying or already giving funds to these companies. There are about 9 companies which are the forerunners of developing vaccines for COVID-19, and 3 of them are in stage 3 trials. So everybody's hoping that this particular any of these companies become successful, so that this doses could be administered to a larger population and we could pass through this unique times of pandemic. Um, Another additional thing which the government did was what is called as a paycheck protection program. This was one of a unique programs which has never been designed in history, but for the first time was designed by US government. Now, what it means is, that if that as a business or a small business owner, uh, we as residents had to give a government an undertaking that we don't have any source of funds from capital markets to source funding, and we could borrow from US government or its lending banks directly. um, Different size of companies actually borrowed from as small as 10,000, 15,000, $20,000, all the way up to a few $1 million, depending upon the size of the company. And the caveat behind this was that the money which would be used uh, from this paycheck protection program would keep all their workers on jobs, pay them money like their salaries. It will be used for utilities, rent, etc., and that would be forgivable. So a lot of small businesses, as I understand, and I was reading the news, was almost like 1.2 million small businesses like restaurants and small retail shops and all use this program. And in fact, some of the large corporations also borrowed from this particular paycheck protection program, and it helped in terms of giving taking us through from March all the way up till September, because I think that was the time the government had asked to keep the employees on board. Um, Even large forgivable loans were given to airlines, because airlines and the tourism sector got a pretty big hit. So, I mean, there are four large airlines: United, American, and Delta and Southwest, and these all four large airlines got large bailouts. I'm talking about something in the tune of $40 billion or more, because at a point of pandemic, these airlines were using $100 million a day, and I'm talking about each individual airline losing that kind of money just because the planes were sitting idle and nobody was traveling. So that helped to stabilize the system as a whole, because everything happens very suddenly in terms of this pandemic. But the government was able to fund such programs. But the negative side of it is that it added to our U.S. government's borrowing about $3 trillion. So U.S. government's debt was pro, pre-pandemic was about $19 trillion. We are now stand at $22 trillion worth of borrowings by the U.S. government. One additional thing which the federal government did was providing unemployment benefits to and also checks to all the people who were making $70,000 or less. So a family of four got about $4,000, and it was given based on last year income tax returns. So anybody who was making less than that amount of money annually was sent this check by the federal government, and people are still receiving checks, and some would get it up all the way up till December. Now, there are still talks in the US government that there would be a second round of such stimulus check, which would also be sent to individuals, but that has still not been passed. It's still being discussed with the House of Representatives. And on top of it, if a person lost their job, they could file for unemployment benefits. And on top of whatever they were entitled as far as unemployment benefits, the federal government also gave additional $600 to them in terms of, meeting their ends, and that was something which helped people, because who lost their jobs, they were able to pay their rents, utilities, and other things. So all in all, the government actually did a lot of work, and I'm sure it is not just United States, it's governments across the globe which did some exemplary work in terms of stabilizing the markets and trying to control the transmission, and whatever they could do or they could best understand in terms of their own given resources. So this is about the steps which were taken by the United States government. It's a brief snapshot. Now, again, as I mentioned, there could be a lot more which the government has done, given the sense of time, and as we are talking about a topic which is very large in its length and breadth. I've just covered some snapshots of it. Now, coming to the industry as such, which is the U.S. economy, and industries as such are the backbone of any economy. Whether I'm talking about sectors like education, retail, and I'm going to talk to you about some snippets of all these sectors, on how these sectors are behaving today in after pandemic, and what they have done to address these changing times. Let me start by education sector. Again, a very relevant sector because all the kids, all the students, all the graduates, all the colleges and universities, they were all caught off guard with something like this. Large institutions like Harvard and all, they also had to vacate their, student campuses and their dorms and everything. And what they had asked students to actually leave the college within a matter of 2 or 3 days back in March. Students were really scrambling because US universities also host a large number of overseas students. So it was a very big activity back in March when they were asked to leave. Now, most university campuses have decided that they would keep remote learning or online learning as an option. And most likely they're looking at probably Q1 2021 or as they see fit uh, to open universities because again social transmission has to be avoided because of this coronavirus. So most universities cannot really restrict students to maintain social distancing, so they said that it's better to close campuses. Again, some universities are taking a mixed approach, and if they are having certain very limited students, they could probably call them to college. But overall seen in United States is that all counties are procuring Chromebooks and giving it to students, and they are predicting that they will make it 100% virtual sessions for students going forward when the school reopens next month. This is something which has happened to an education sector. It's for good. The students learning should were some of the best and some of the worst sectors combined in an FMCG. So if you were probably servicing from a food side of the market, people started to hoard material, food, toilet paper, cleaning supplies and everything. So so back in March, some of these retailers saw a very significant jump in their sales. However, if I look at some other sectors like clothing, retail, some of these airports and shopping malls, they actually were left behind because there is a large department chain called Macy's. It was almost closed for 1 month. So so some of these retailers actually got stuck up with a lot of inventory. Now, as you are aware, in a summer season they have summer inventory, and if you are not buying within the right season, the clothing demand and other changes to a winter pattern or fall pattern. So, and again, there is always a seasonality factor to clothing and other retail chains. So a lot of clothing retailers actually filed for bankruptcy during last couple of months. And again, this is something just because of the fact that overall there is a seismic shift in the buying pattern of consumer. People are moving online, and retail chains are seeing that change. Coming to manufacturing sector, this sector actually has seen again ups and downs. Again, for example, if you are into manufacturing of food, if you are into manufacturing of cleaning products, if you are into manufacturing of certain specific items which were consumed in the pandemic or the consumers were actually using it, you actually got sales for probably a year in just 3 4 months. But then again, there is a company called Boeing which is actually makes planes. Now that company is almost 2% of US GDP as far as the stock market is concerned, and they don't have any plane orders, so they are really struggling because of this. So there are different industries which are coping with different sides of manufacturing. Obviously, manufacturing is the backbone of any economy, and in US there is manufacturing, but there is a lot of products which actually get imported from China and all other countries combined. So whatever manufacturing is there in United States, whatever was relevant for pandemic, it actually survived, but some of them really had to struggle for it. Construction sector is something which actually stopped for a while, but mostly construction are large term projects. And they are something like, if you're talking about government funded projects like roads, bridges, and tunnels, they were stopped for a time being, but with the new set of rules coming out, people are actually seeing that that activity has resumed wherever possible with social distancing programs in place. Again, housing saw a big demand in construction, and people were looking to buy houses just because of the simple reason that we were spending an extremely large amount of time at our homes, and people who were living on rents thought that they should own a place of their own. So homes demand and construction backed by it actually saw a good boom. uh, Transportation and warehousing is a sector which actually got disturbed, I would say. We import a lot of product out of India, and we saw that a lot of shipping lines and airlines, so airlines which were also carrying some sort of a goods, because most governments either banned citizens to travel between one country and another, saw that they couldn't even take a lot of air cargo, and air cargo prices jumped up to double of what they were pre-pandemic. But even the sea channels were actually got disturbed because large shipping lines like Maersk, CMA, CGM, and others, they were actually are still not operating at a normal level. A lot of containers are getting shut out. A lot of vessels are not calling the ports. The whole global supply chain has got disrupted because during the lockdown, the containers which were left in China got back in China. The containers which were stuck in India got stuck in India, and so even if somebody wants to export a product, they did not have containers, or they did not have they had the material, but the vessels were not calling, and that still something which we are facing even today after 4 months. But things are getting improving, but it still got that challenge of transportation, which actually got challenged the movement of goods and services across the globe, whether you are importing to United States or exporting from United States. Healthcare as a sector, I would say, is something which was actually in the midst of this crisis, mostly because of the fact that there were advantages of this pandemic and there were disadvantages. Now, what advantages we heard were that because people were not in lockdown, people were not going out so much, so there were less people who were getting sick. There were people who were, getting, going to regular doctor visits. They stopped. So the healthcare sector actually was focusing mostly on the pandemic side of it. Now, there is a ancillary pharma industry which is also a part of the healthcare, and they are actually the ones who are under tremendous pressure today in terms of vaccine development, because that is the biggest focus for governments across United States in terms of what they need uh, um, to do in order to control this pandemic. So every state in United States had a different curve, and hospitals were basically getting focused on making sure that they can take patients equal to what they had their ICU capacity is. There was a lot of demand for ventilators, but I think the government has done a good job of procuring almost 200,000 ventilators, which is a lot, for any such crisis. But point being that today the tri-state area doesn't have it, but Texas has it, Florida has it. So a lot of different states have this challenge going on, and uh, again, they are closely monitoring the transmission rates, and the experts, what we hear on news and all, are saying that there might be a possibility of a second wave back after October, to between October and December, which is technically a flu season. But that's what is they are preparing now. So earlier back in March, the government did not had uh, any time to prepare, but now most counties, states, and even at the federal level, people are doing whatever they can to be prepared for it. Now, hospitality sector. Now, this is the sector sadly which got the worst hit because of people not traveling. So, airline, cruise ships, hotels, restaurants, and all anything and everything to do with travel and hospitality is the segment which got the worst hit. And it's just because of the fact that there is a large amount of people is who are actually employed by this sector, and there are a lot of people who travel, whether they come to United States or they travel globally. So hospitality is one sector which is almost down. Probably they are expecting that this year they will be probably around 30% of normal, and they expect at least a year and a half to 2 years before they can see at least 70 to 80% of normal volume, which was there back in January. And this sector, unfortunately, is also a very large job creator for the economy, and this is a sector which is actually also has a lot of young students, kids, and others also involved. So the sector would probably take some time to recover, and in order to see that recovery, we will have to wait and see what happens. Utilities was one sector which is actually also got a hit because the businesses shut down. They did not have income, and utilities is something which actually depends upon usage or consumption of electricity, water, and other things. So that sector actually, the home people were staying at home, so they were fine. But the businesses and whatever revenue they were generating from that sector um, um, actually take a steep downturn at the time of March and April. Now, since April onwards, most of the retail activity the government has allowed or the states have allowed to open up, with mask and with other social distancing and other practices in place. So, as we speak today, except the gyms and the cinema theaters, uh, other sectors have been allowed to open up. Only these two things have not been allowed to open up, just because of the fact that they are still debating how they can maintain social distancing in a gym, or if there are like very crowded spaces and they'd want to avoid such transmission. But all in all, I've just given you a snapshot of different sectors. At the end of the call, I can probably, if you want to know a little bit more about any other sector which I have not covered, I would be happy to probably talk about that with you guys. Now, the third puzzle to this piece to this equation is what we can do as responsible citizens. So, I mean, the government will do its own part, the industry will do its own part, or the sectors based on, whatever they would deem fit in order to survive this next 12 to 18 months. But as responsible citizens, there is a fundamental shifts which have happened, and paths forward. So there have been some good and positives which have come out from this pandemic, and I wanted to just focus a little bit about these things, because this is something which would be a takeaway from this presentation. So when I think about it, from a perspective of what has happened, a lot of people have actually started to focus on their health and family. I mean, I have seen a lot of people have actually said that they have spent the maximum amount of time with their families, which they haven't in their working careers. And people are now focusing on their health, and exercising, eating better at home, and taking multivitamins or whatever it is. And to support that data, we actually supply a lot of glass bottles to nutraceutical business, and they have seen an exponential growth. So it's a data driven fact that people are focusing on their health a lot. um, Being at home and being in a lockdown has actually triggered a lot of creativity. You can talk about a lot of things which you can see of what people are doing in order to spend their time. But I think it has generated creativity within a small span of time, and people have started to do things which they were not doing, or engaging in either music, dancing, or whatever their creative element is. And that's an excellent thing to keep you mentally strong. What has come out good from this has been a digital disruption across the industries. As a business development person, I used to travel a lot, and now the whole industry is on conference calls, on Zoom calls the whole day, more or less. Talking to customers, talking internally. So digital disruption, which was probably, I would not say a percentage, but if let us say that it was X percentage, it has multiplied n number of times in terms of the whole way we were doing business, whether we were talking overseas, whether we were talking to our friends. So digital disruption has actually been a very positive outcome of this particular thing, and even companies today are thinking that what are the positives they could take out of this digital disruption. Is travel necessary to the way or extent it was prior to the lockdown, and how can their employees strongly address this digital disruption, and what things are necessary, and is travel necessary today, and what can be done through these digital means. So the fundamental shift of what we do business is that a lot of companies are actually looking at their physical spaces. I mean, do we need a actual office space? In fact, there are talks in the industry that if there were 1,000 people working in a Manhattan office, they might possibly, after the lockdown opens, only need 300, because they have found out that their productivity is still at par even if people are working from home. And so you will see a big shift, I would say, not just in United States but across globally, on the retail space and the real estate space. And companies might actually see a benefit that people could actually maintain work-life balance but still be productive at home. um, so that is a fundamental shift in what how and the way we are doing business. Mental fitness is something which I also wanted to point out, that staying at home in a confined space has actually really got talking about this particular thing as mental fitness. And I think it has made people stronger, and it has started to steer a debate that we have to be not only just physically strong but mentally strong. And I think the creative element actually adds up to it. The next thing is automation. The industry is going through a major shift in terms of automation, and with this pandemic, I think they are even looking to further automate their business processes and practices, just because they don't want to keep too many people. So automation is already a buzzword across the industry, and it will continue to add more fuel as we go along. And companies, especially in manufacturing sector, insurance sector, and a lot of other sectors where we will see that automation, digital disruption would change the way people were doing industry, business. Connectivity has also been an important aspect. We have heard that people were so busy with their work and their businesses and their own professional lives and personal lives that connectivity was mostly through digital channels. But due to this lockdown, people have started to call each other, people have started to connect each other, people have found out really old friends. So connectivity has actually been a positive outcome of this pandemic. And lastly, and most importantly, when the times are tough, it's actually an important element is taking care of people who need our help in terms of either giving back. There are, even in India, you have maids and other people who are not so fortunate in terms of the savings they have. And I think that is very important in terms of not necessarily just the monetary part of it, but whatever way you could help the population which needs help, and express our gratitude in terms of whatever we have been given by God. The power of gratitude is very important, that we should be thankful, and ensuring that how we can grow further in whatever space we are today. So I think that is something which has come out positively in this year. And I think from a citizen standpoint, these were some of the key takeaways which I think are important and relevant in today's scenario. Now we are here in this for a long run. Nobody knows what the future in is for this pandemic, but the point is that till we get a vaccine or till we get a cure for this, we need to be mentally strong and pass through these troubled times. With that, I think I'm happy to take any questions if you have. Yes, Chaitanya.
Uh, yes, I just go through the website of Pirama Glass. I found out that the vice chairman had declared announces the 3,000 crore investment in Gujarat for one of his kind of factories expansion. But after
Mm-hmm,
that, after immediate after that, this lockdown happened, and
mm-hmm,
although in other news it is shown that you are successfully mm, uh, fulfilling all the demands of what product you have. So
mm-hmm.
uh, how this supply chain is managed in your company? So I'm
Okay,
very
so
interested to listen that.
okay, so what happens is that glass is a very unique business. Consider it like an airline. I mean, or a fixed capacity business. So it's like a steel furnaces. In terms of that, if you have a furnace of say 100 tons, you can actually melt 100 tons of glass per day and convert it into bottles, equivalent number of bottles, say a million bottles or 5 million bottles per day, depending upon the size of the container. And so what happens is that the company can only grow to an extent till the point they have already sold its capacity. So what happens is that every couple of years, the company actually either by expanding its current footprint of a furnace or putting up greenfield projects, actually invest in adding capacity, and then that capacity actually helps to grow your own turnover. So with the pen, with the pandemic, we are able to manage our current customers, but the future expansion plans are something which are like these plants, greenfield plants, could take possibly a year or sometimes even more to complete, and to install before you can actually produce containers which are saleable in the market. So whatever are the expansion plans, they are something which are a long term horizon. But whatever is something which we are currently having a capacity for, we are selling from that capacity.
Uh, okay, sir. And one more question I have to ask.
Hmm.
Uh, as this Piramal Glass is partnership with Microsoft for digitization of digital transformation of various processes. So,
Hmm.
what are the new job opportunities, or what this partnership will bring companies to the new era, or new what opportunities should will have for the students?
So, I mean, it, just to explain you what we are doing. So, our machines are highly automated, and there is a digital cell which our CIO handles, and a lot of manufacturing, as I mentioned in my last point about automation, is actually going towards collection of data, in the sense that there are sensors on machines which actually collect data in terms of how much bottles a machine is producing, how much bottles are getting rejected by the inspection equipments, how much bottles are being packed at the very end. And these data is actually getting collected by sensors, and these are billions of data sets. Now these billions of data sets are actually stored. Microsoft has a product called Azure, which is a cloud platform where we actually store these data sets. And then there are data scientists which are there who would actually uh, you know uh, synthesize this data in terms of giving relevant outputs to the production teams in terms of which defect your machines or your bottles are the maximum, how you could eliminate those defects, how could you understand, or what are the computer algorithms which could actually pre-program in terms of if there is a particular defect, how the machines could be adjusted to stop those defects. So there is a lot of work happening on automation, which is not just on the manufacturing side of it, but also on the data side of it. So in last 4 5 years, data has become the biggest power for most industries, because as your websites, as your sensors, as your home automation or home smart product or devices, billions of data sets are being collected across industries, and that data is all raw data. Now all this data is actually going to get synthesized to make some relevant output, which is going to be fed to the management of the company in terms of a relevance. I mean, you could say that you are entering a data into a website, but that does not give me any feedback out of it, that you're putting in information. But when billions of people are putting information, we could actually slice the data and understand, okay, what are the decisions I should take, what are the things or positives which would come out of the data. So data is the next big thing which all industries have realized, and that's why there are data tools like Tableau, there are data tools like ClickSense, there are data tools which actually synthesize this data. And so when you talk about job opportunities, data would be one area which would actually have a lot of job opportunities from all angles, if you are able to understand the data, raw data, articulate it, make sense out of it, and present it to the management that, okay, what were you trying to find from that data? Because data has billions of set points, but what is the output you're trying to get out of it? So in the next set of jobs, when you look at things, data would be one area where job opportunities are still there today, but it will even continuously eh, continue to add more, because that is what will give companies some good relevant insights of how to take decisions. Yes, we were taking those decisions in the past, but they were basically, somebody actually, putting some data set in an Excel sheet, then trying to make pivots, then trying to make certain set of those things. But that is still a small amount of data. Now, the power of algorithms and the power of computing can do much better jobs in terms of going it further more granular. And I think that is where all industries would use either Microsoft or some place to store that data, but also then use certain other platforms like these banking companies and all, because they have billions of data set points to understand and get relevance out of it, that what is the population, are they buying home loans, or are they doing something, who is the best population, which area they should target. So you can have thousands of data sets which you can get out from a raw data. So so to answer your question, yes, that is something. If you would like to study in detail, yes, there is definitely opportunities in the market for something like that.
Yes, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chaitanya, for your question. Can we have our next question, please?
Yes, sir, Shashank here.
Yes, Shashank. Yeah.
Yes, sir, I just wanted to ask about data storage that you mentioned about Azure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sir. So you said earlier that there are billions of data storage, right?
Data points, yes.
Data points. Yes. So, sir, how are there any challenges to store the data in Azure, and how it is stored? How the process is it? I know. I just wanted to know about the process and the challenges
So,
faced.
so basically, these are cloud platforms. Like, Amazon Web Services is a cloud platform. Azure is a cloud platform. So basically, the sensors which collect this data are able to keep this data on the servers. Now, these servers are hosted by companies like Google, like Amazon, like Microsoft, and they have data centers across the globe. There is You cannot imagine the amount of data these companies can keep because they have several million terabytes of data in each data centers. I mean, your emails, they are also basically stored on cloud somewhere. So the companies actually don't have any problem storing the data with such servers because these are paid services where you keep this data, whatever you collect, what is relevant to your industry. Now, glass industry would have a different relevance, bank would have a different relevance, and then there are no challenges. It's just a matter of you have to be clear as management on what data you are capturing and what output you want to get out of it. Having said that, let me give you a very simple example. That suppose you want to study, for example, in Pune, how many management. Suppose a bank wants to give credit cards to students in Pune. So they would probably start by saying that how can they first collect data in terms of how many management institutes are in Pune, how many students are there, and then there might be a percentage of those students who could actually be credit worthy to open up credit or debit cards. So that data is somewhere, that data has to be collected. Then that data has to be sliced, that okay, what is the relevant market size we are targeting, and then based on that you have to then target. So all in all, this whole activity of data collection is about trying to get to make a decision. Now that decision could be on the manufacturing side, that decision could be on the project side, that decision could be on the sales side. For, so let us say that you have a customer, which customer should we go, how much they buy, what do they buy, what size of bottle do they buy, and which segment do they service. Is it pharmaceutical, is it cosmetics, is it alcobev, it could be other segments. So there is a need for management on all aspects of data. Now when the data is collected, then there are either softwares, algorithms which can give you the output, or there are people who would probably, which today in terms are called as either data architects or data scientists, and that's a very upcoming field where they would actually work with management, and the management will give them an ask that I would need to see how many people are buying, suppose, X product in North America, and you could probably get that data out of a data set. There are companies who actually sell data also. So data could be procured from multiple relevant places, but to make a sense out of it is more important than where to store it or what to do with it. The challenge is what problem you're trying to solve and how you would solve with it. So the main important thing is what is management's outcome, what you're looking at, where will you get the raw data, and how you will process it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the answer.
Hmm.
Thank you, Sashank, for your question. Can we have our next question, please? sir.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, you spoke about automation in business. So, how do you see automation affecting marketing and sales related businesses?
So, automation is mostly on different industries have different way of automation. Okay, so manufacturing is seeing automation on the making a product. So let us say if 20 years back I had 30 people on a manufacturing line, with the way automation is happening, that the machine will manufacture the product, an inspection machine would inspect it, a box manufacturing machine will make the box, the robotics arms will pick up the bottles and put it in the box and tape it. So if earlier there were 30 people, it today might require only 3 people. Okay, in terms of what automation is doing. So the jobs which would be probably in that sector as you go forward would always keep reducing, because there would be new technologies and new computer based systems which would come out, which would eliminate the use of human need. Now automation in terms of different industries like insurance policies, if you are buying an insurance policy, earlier somebody used to write an insurance policy or something. Now you can go online and it is already automated, that you just basically fill out a form. There are processes which are working in the back end with an actual table, and they can actually give you a quote right away of what your insurance is. Same thing with legal, that legal was a large profession, and again a lot of things are being taken in terms of so to answer your question, automation would be different for different industries. It will be that anything which computers can understand that humans used to do on a repetitive basis will tend to be taken by computers. Okay, now customer service, for example, there were people who were doing customer service job. Now a lot of time now what we are seeing in automation is that computers can actually talk to you. They half of your interaction when you call a customer service is with the computer, and they are now operating with half of customer service compared to what they had probably 10 years back. And the way AI is developing right now, you would possibly not even have that much, because if you have seen, you can go on Google and see their automated AI response. They can actually book appointments in saloons, they can actually book appointments in restaurants, they can actually do a lot of things, and you are not even talking to a human, you're talking to actually a machine. So as artificial intelligence takes over, a lot of repetitive and mundane things which are required, say on a customer service side, would change. On the sales side also, if you are seeing e-commerce, that is something which is actually selling a product. So you go on the website, you compare products, you can actually buy a product on Amazon, and it's all relevant today. So sales is also changing in the sense that it is going from a physical store model to an online model. And even in online model also, you can even compare through websites what's the best price you can get, what's the specs you're looking for. So a lot has changed on the sales side, a lot has changed on an industry side itself, and anything which computers can take and automate based on writing an algorithm can be done. And do understand that it's earlier it might be 2 to 3 years that things were changing in terms of a new technology coming in, but nowadays with the way computing power is increasing, the way computers can process information through apps, through so many background processes, it is becoming much more powerful in terms of what they can do. I mean, if you can take an example, there were travel agents in India. Nowadays nobody goes to travel agents, there are very limited travel agents left. That industry has completely been taken over by websites. There were, for example, electricity bill and water bills, which people used to go and in person stand in lines and do it. Now banks can actually do it on you. So a lot of things are changing, and there is a systematic pattern of shift in industry which will wipe out different industries. But having said that, we don't have to take it in a negative way that it will always be uh, a job loss in the industry because of it. Do look it from a positive side that there are industries which are opening up. There are a lot of industries from either automation, chatbots, your internet of things, your a lot of data related data scientists. And so there are new and upcoming fields which are coming up. And so in order to be relevant in today's marketplace, doing the same thing may help you. But if you go into certain emerging technologies and the way industry is moving, that would help the students in terms of uh, you know uh, getting the relevant push to next 20 years. What was relevant 20 years back or 10 years back is not relevant today, and what is relevant today might not be relevant 20 years from now. So look at do your research, see what are the upcoming areas where companies do require it. It is not that the companies don't have position, they will definitely have position. The positions have changed. We never used to we never, probably 20 years back, thought of hiring a data scientist, but today there are openings for data scientists in our company. So it's just a matter of what is the need of the hour and what would be the next big thing coming, and you have to look at and then change your uh, study or requirement pattern to address the demand of the industry. Now certain professors, like professions like finance would always be there, sales would always be there. There would be always need for engineering, because nobody can actually design bottles without having an engineering acumen. But point being that it is just that you have to look at upcoming fields, upcoming professions, because that will be the one which will actually generate a lot more relevance for you guys for next 20 years.
Okay, sir. Thank you for such a detailed answer.
Sir, may I ask a question? Sir,
Yeah.
Shruti. Yeah. Sir, within a couple of months, these students will be appearing for job interviews. So,
Mhm.
what would you advise? Like, what would be your advice for them? What kind of skill set they should develop to meet the industry demand?
Uh, so my point would be that they would all have their own specialized fields. In the sense that somebody would be in finance, somebody would be in sales, some would be in human resource. I'm not sure what specializations these students would be having, but I mean, I would give you a simple example that let us say somebody is from human resource. Now human resource as a profession might be there, but then there are specific softwares which industries are now putting their employees data on. For example, PeopleSoft is one. I think WeWorks or something is one. And there so at those softwares actually have relevant, not only just employee information. And I think Oracle is, I think our company uses, I think, Oracle, some Oracle based software. So having said that yes, you have studied, but if you are able to use such softwares or have a relevance experience in terms of knowing what this software does in terms of human resource, and marrying the two, then you have much more relevance to the industry than just knowing basically about human resource, or what are the upcoming things which are coming in terms of technology with human resource marrying together. There might be new softwares which are today, like India might have new different softwares. So you have to look at the relevance of what jobs are out in the market today and what the companies are looking for, and then prepare the students for such opportunities, because that will give you much more much more relevant in the industry versus just being what we learned in the college, because it has to probably marry the two, and anybody who will have that skill set will definitely be a positive, because these are fresher students, so they would possibly I mean, if there is something somebody says that yes, I am a human resource MBA, but I also have people soft skills, then the companies look at it as it much more positively, because if they are using that software, then they have a trained resource. Otherwise, eventually that person might join, but it might be like a 6 months to a 1 year of learning curve. But if they are into learning and development, if they are into some other fields, it might, so every field might have its own upcoming set of set of uh, requirements. But I think that is something which I'm not familiar with what are the current things which the companies are asking for in India today. But if they are, then students should actually maybe on a side note do such trainings, understand how those softwares operate, or understand what the industry is looking for and what the jobs are, and then that adds up to marrying the two together.
Thanks. Thank you, sir.
Can I
Thank
ask?
you, ma'am. Thank you,
Can I
ma'am, for
ask
your
a question?
question. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Jatin, this is Professor Randive again.
Yeah.
Jatin, one of the points you made was now companies are getting used to having a large number of their workforce work from home. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, and they find it economical and convenient in many ways. If this continues, what kind of challenges you see, new challenges you see for the HR managers?
Um, so, Professor, there are. I mean, I am not going to. I do not know about India, but I can tell you what HRs are pushing here for.
Okay.
So there is something called as a social gathering in the evening. Basically, I'm supposed to sit with my team, and we can have a drink session in the evening, with our teammates, where you could talk about things other than work.
Mhm.
And so this is just one example, but the way HRs are engaging is that they are providing, seminars on strong team building, whatever
Yes.
companies can understand. What HRs are doing is that they are actually, doing some sort of online team building activities. Though it's virtual, but it is still that they have not lost the relevance of it, because these platforms, these software platforms, are very collaborative in the sense that they can actually do, you two people can actually write on a whiteboard together or things like that. So they are actually engaging, or working with the managers to understand what are the things which we could
Mm.
do as teams. Now, as companies, to bring their employees together, the managements are holding like big large sessions of maybe 10,000 or 50,000 people to log into a group, and the CEO is talking about what are the next steps, or what are they doing to bring people together. They are assuring people that if you are not comfortable to come to work, you can stay unless till that there is a vaccine developed. I mean, for example, Facebook has told already to work till January of 2021. Google has announced until June of 2021. So most companies have already pushed their plans to bring back to employees until next year. And I think the culture itself is changing, because it's more of a, I mean, if you have worked, if you've heard about WeWorks or shared spaces, I think Pune also has certain
Yes.
something called as shared work co-spaces or something,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
used by a lot of startups. So
Yeah.
I think even companies are looking at that model, where they are saying that if you need, it's not necessary that you want to come to office, but if there is a need for a team to come to office, you can come. And there are online platforms where you can actually book an appointment. You will be assigned a desk, you just go there, your phone is already assigned to that desk, and everything is technology driven, and you can start working, and you can do a team meeting in a New York office. So it's relevant, and it is going to change, because I think people have seen the benefit of it, that I think they are able to if they were actually spending an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening for commute, that 2 hours are spent wisely in terms of, they can exercise more, they can spend time with their family and other things. So there are some positive outcomes which are also coming because of this. So which the companies are also noticing, because people are productive. Absolutely, they are seeing that they can do much more work, because if I was taking 1 hour to reach Manhattan, I can probably start my office work at 8 o'clock. I mean, without even, and then you are more energetic because you are not sweating yourself traveling in, traffic, and also you are more productive, you are more sharp in terms of doing it, and then you are even getting enough rest in the evening. So there are some definitely positive outcomes which have come out of it from a health perspective also. People are eating less outside, so people are not gaining too much weight, though there are a lot of WhatsApp floating around. But I think I have observed that people are more relevant, and I think companies would give them that comfort level till they are ready to come back.
I have one. Hello.
Yeah.
Am I? Are you done with your answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I have one more question. Some of the companies, many large companies, used to be very careful about the social skills of their employees, particularly in sales. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with this kind of a situation where a large number of employees start working from home, how do you
Mm-hmm.
think companies will look at taking special efforts in developing social skills, or even assessing at the time of appraisal whether the person has social enough social skills or not?
Um,
Am I clear? Am I
so
clear?
yeah, you're clear. I think there are. I mean, I travel for work, and I have traveled
Yes.
extensively for my sales meeting. There are two sides of the story. One is that today, suppose that my company would say that, okay, you are allowed to travel. The customers are not willing to host us. That's one. So it has changed in a way that people, even if a salesperson is willing to travel, unless and until there is a extreme necessity and you have to take
Hmm. Hmm.
approvals from your from management, if there is really a relevance to travel, people are not allowing other people to their offices or to their plants or to their manufacturing sites or offices. um, Having said that, companies are mindful about the fact that this is something which is not a normal course of pattern, which they have observed. I mean, in the sense, yes, there were normal appraisals, there were a lot of normal things which used to happen in normal times, but these are not normal times, and the companies do realize that it was something which was not a choice of either the company or the employee. And to address that, they are aware about the fact that definitely there is skill development, social etiquettes, and all those things which will come into play. But I think what we have done is, for example, we do video calls with our customers and clients. We are equally professional with them. When we are hosting large customers, we are in fact having evening social gatherings with large customers as we meet them, after hours and all. So maybe in one way we are sitting in front of them. We're still a brand representative of the company, but it has just the mode of physical has changed to online. That's the only difference, I would say. But I think companies are mindful of the fact that if this takes a year, or if it takes 1.5 or 2 years, they will have to live with it. I mean, there is no choice which either an employee has or a company has. They are trying to make the best out of this situation till we come out of it. And I think once we pass through this phase, I think you cannot deny the fact that in-person meeting definitely adds that additional a value of creating a repo with the customer or a client. And when you go and sit with them or have a dinner with them or lunch with them, it definitely adds that personal reputation. You not only talk about work, but about your families, and you talk about a lot more other things. And there is a definitely, if you meet a client a couple of times, it creates that different level of relationship for a long term. So yes, it has changed a little bit, but it is not going to stop. It is going to come back for maybe after some time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Adding on to Randive sir's question, this is Professor Datar here.
Yeah.
Like he talked about social skills, I have a couple of friends in the US. The problem they are facing is because both of them being a working couple, many families are having issues of how to take care of their small children. And this, I think, is they claim affecting not only their work but also, their family life and their productivity as well. So, has there been any measures taken on this front by any of the companies? Because I believe a lot of the childcare centers are now closed down.
So, I mean, it's something that I have young kids, and so is a lot of people who have both the husband and their spouse working. So yes, what you said is definitely true, because the schools are closed, and parents are stuck with the young kids. But if you look at conference calls, people have kids walking behind their conference calls, and everybody understands. It's not that
Okay.
it is by choice. It is by by the virtue
Yes.
of
Okay.
whatever you a situation is, and everybody understands that it is not going to last forever. So I mean, people, I have attended meetings where people's kids have actually peeked into the laptop or actually have been walking, and my kids have actually, been yelling behind when I'm talking. So, one reason to choose early morning time was because they were sleeping. So otherwise, you could have heard them. So, it's
Okay.
it's it's a matter of of that companies understand it.
Okay.
Most organizations, whoever, are actually very supportive of it,
Right.
and they understand that the kids or the daycares are closed, so it's not a matter of choice of the parents. It's a matter of something which, in a pandemic, it is bound to happen. So if it is happens, I think parents are actually coping up with it, and either through digital memes. Most kids have iPads today or something, so they are, if there is a urgent meeting, then you can actually give them kids something like an electronic gadget, and they will be quiet. So you're just living with it, though it is not good for kids from their development standpoint. But it's just that in the next school session, most schools are saying that they will have a full day class online. So they will be actually be sitting with the teacher online for 6 full hours, and I'm talking about grade 1 or grade 2.
Right.
So so
Okay.
so
Okay.
so so while in March and April there was a problem because they were not prepared. Now, as we go into the new session of school, they are much more prepared. So they will engage the kids who will go to school. Possibly daycares are also going to open, but many parents are not comfortable sending because of the of one reason that they might get COVID-19 or something. So it is to each its own. So if you feel that you need to send your kid, you would. If you feel that you're not comfortable, you won't. And I think uh, kids are also, in last 4 or 5 months, have been able to adapt to this new environment of staying at home, playing, or staying within the community. And I think that would possibly be there for some more time.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Jatin, I have an extracurricular question,
I
if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Sure.
Okay. Does the Associate Capsule Group still have a presence in New Jersey?
mm,
Do you
i
do you recall?
i think they sell in New Jersey. Do they have an office? I do not
So
know.
they had set up an office in 2002. I mean, I was a part of the team which used to go there to set up the office.
Okay.
Then they
I
thought of
I
shifting it to Salt Lake City. I don't know whether it happened or not happened. Anyway, if you don't know,
yeah
that means they are not very prominent.
No, they might be prominent, sir. Honestly, because I deal with customers, but we basically are on the pharma side of the business, which is
Yeah.
glass. But they
Yes.
might be on the capsule side, which is a different industry
Yeah,
segment
yeah, yeah.
altogether.
That's
So
so.
they might be
So
relevant
since
in
you
a
would
different
have the
industry.
same customers, you would have the same
Yeah.
customers. I thought you would know. But maybe they are not very prominent. Whatever.
They
Shivane sir.
could be. I mean, there are a lot of pharma
Okay.
companies in New Jersey, so they could be
I
very prominent. But I
I
would
know.
not comment on it without knowing.
Correct. Okay. Shivane sir.
Hello, good evening. I am Dr. Abhijit Shivne. I would like to ask one question. Uh, and I also listened to your speech, and you also said that there are some positive outcomes of COVID-19 pandemic.
Mhm.
So, uh, don't you think that HR or the management of a company has to think about dividing employees into three parts? That some of them can work from home permanently, and some of them can come irregularly or infrequently, and some of them are compulsorily joining office. And it may solve few of the problems. Like in India, we see n number of bridges are there in Mumbai, n number of local train, metro train, monorail, so many. But it did not solve the problem of traffic. So don't you think that companies have to and the government has to think about this, that virtual working be made uh, a normal working for a few of the employees where there is no need to travel as such actually, particularly those who are in white collar jobs where physical labor is not involved.
Uh, my To answer your question, it's a very broad spectrum of industries, and when you meet at the management team, sitting in front of anybody would definitely have a different discussion versus when you are online, because online is very specific to what your ask and need is. So to answer your question, um, I would not. I My personal opinion is that in person people will definitely go to office. I mean, people who are required today also go to office wherever needed, even if there are like 50 people in a office, only 5 are going or 10 are going. But I would put it on the company on what their need is, and if that particular job can be done remotely, or if there is an in-person meeting required, and if it is required, it would need that person to go, then it has to be done. I mean, because it's the need of a business, and that's why the person is working in a company, because he's supposed to address that need. So there is no, in my opinion, there is no right answer for it. I would leave it to each company to take that decision on what is their right approach to their business model. And if it demands one third of workforce to come in office, a rotational model, or completely virtual, it is all depending upon how strong their systems are, how strong their need is, and if it is, then absolutely, any model can work depending upon company to company.
Because particularly in India, right, where we have these traffic issues are there. Also, like suppose government of India, government of Maharashtra, or any other state government could make it blended working. They can save crores of rupees because
Ab-
they spend like anything on this
ab-
unnecessarily.
no, no, absolutely. I think it is there, but the chances of government, dictating corporates is something which is
No,
difficult to enforce. But I mean, again, this after this phase, I think companies would possibly relook, as I said. on on physical office spaces.
Yes.
So I would, as I said, it would be definitely a change, a systemic change in the overall pattern of things. But I'm confident that companies are looking at that fundamental change to how they do business. And is everybody required in that office? Can they work from home? Can they work partly remote, partly office? So but those will be depending upon functions, what they need and how they need it. So yes, a shift is expected. How it pans out in next 2 years, we will have to wait and see.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Because this has also other positive side, that environment. Look at the pollution level that has gone down, which was
Mhm.
never before in Delhi. Particularly, it is a highly polluted city. Nobody could able to resolve these issues. If somebody like has to think from this perspective, and I am not saying that it should be made mandatory. I'm just saying that they can develop some theory on this. Theory can be built on this.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your question. Yes, Parikshit, sir, you can ask your question.
Uh, Good evening, sir. My question is regarding one of the early remarks you made in your presentation, that the US government monetarily helped its citizens.
Mhm.
Was it in terms of giving cash in the hands of people? I think you mentioned a family of four getting a few $1,000, if I
Mhm.
recollect correctly.
Yeah.
In Due to COVID-19, many contractual workers or people who are doing temporary jobs
Mhm.
seem to have been deeply impacted and have lost jobs. So
Right.
how much importance can be assigned to this cash dole out that the government has done? What is its significance? If you could just talk a little bit on that front.
So let's put it this way. To answer your first question, the government doesn't give out cash. It's basically that, like we file taxes in India, we file taxes in the United States. So if you file a tax, and during your last year tax return, if you had your bank information with the government or the IRS, then they would use that same bank to deposit the money, this this particular amount. And as I said, the limit was anybody who was earning less than $70,000, and that income was based on last year's income when you filed your taxes. Now, if somebody had opted during their tax return to that the government should send them a check instead of a bank deposit, then based on your last address, they were sent mailed out checks to their address which the government had during last year tax returns. So either it was a bank deposit or either it was a check which was sent to that person. Um, now, having said that, by all means, a lot of people were actually either furloughed or laid off during the period of March because companies were abruptly shut down, so they couldn't keep such a high workforce. So that stimulus money, which is called as, I mean, we call it here stimulus checks or stimulus payments, they actually help the people in terms of getting to buy their groceries, to pay their rents, to pay their mortgages, to pay whatever they need for. And by all means, this is only a one time payment in last 4 months, so it's not something which would be a very extraordinary amount since we are talking about 4 months span, but it would at least alleviate the burden of people when they lost their jobs temporarily. Now, as the economy opened up and people started to go back to work, they were actually their sources of income actually started back again. So, portion of the economy is got back to work, but still about 10 million people are still without work, and they would be possibly on a unemployment benefit from their state. I think the federal one has expired in July end, but they would be on a unemployment benefit from the state, which would continue. I think there are certain number of set of weeks where it would be given to them, and the idea is that by that time, say in a matter of 20 or 30 weeks, whatever that number is, the rest of the economy should open up and people should go back to jobs. So as things are opening up, people are resuming work, and it's not going to be. It's like a recession and pandemic together. So it's not going to be one start and stop. It is going to be a gradual rebuild as demand comes back again. Industries are going to hire their what do you call their workforce again, but I think it is going to take some time to be back to normal, and I hope that answers your question of the stimulus payments.
Yes. A sub question that I wanted to ask you is, do you think it also helped the small businesses survive? Because whatever money went to the people through buying and other expenditure, eventually it came back to businesses, and I'm sure through taxes, a small portion of it has again gone back to the government itself. Your views on this,
businesses
sir?
businesses actually had a different program. I had spoken about PPE, Paycheck Protection Program. So businesses had a different website where a small business could actually apply for. So they could actually say that, okay, in next 5 months my payroll and other utilities and rent expenses are, say, $30,000. So they could actually ask for something of a loan of such amount, and almost 1.2 million small businesses got such loan. Um, Now that loan was to some extent was forgivable, and some was deferred over a period of couple of years as a loan to those small businesses at a very nominal interest rate. So there was a separate track for small businesses to survive during this pandemic, and there was a separate track for individual taxpayers to get the stimulus payments to survive during this pandemic. And that was not necessary whether you lost your job or you did not lost your job. It was based on the income cap, that if you were making $70,000 or less, you were getting a stimulus payment. Now, to answer your question, how it got back into economy, yes, I mean, anybody who is earning would be contributing in one way or the other to the economy and to the government, because when you buy something or do any economic activity, whether you're buying groceries or paying utilities, it's going to a corporation or a company, and in turn the money rotates within the economy. So portion of that would be gone to the government, but again, the balance sheets which the government have the exposure which the government has taken is extremely high to pass through this recession. But I think after opening up, I think it would still take some time to revive businesses, because overall the demand has not come back to a point which was there. It is, say, probably around 40-50% of, say, for most restaurants, if it was 100% in January after the pandemic, it was, say, in July it was 10%, August it went to 30-40%. So slowly and steadily, restaurants will build up, airline would take some time, vacations would take some time. So but all in all, yes, overall the revenue, the government also has lost revenue. because of the slower economic activity all in all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Parikshit sir, for your question. Now I would like to invite Aarti to present the vote of thanks. Over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Pradyum. It's my immense pleasure to present the vote of thanks. I am Aarti, and on behalf of Deccan Education Society (IMDR), would like to thank you, sir, for giving us time and enlightening us on the impact of COVID-19 on US economy. Sir, your session was very insightful as we move towards embracing the new normal. We gained perspective on steps taken by the government in order to control the pandemic and stabilize the system. The sector specific insights gave us a clear idea about the shift in buying pattern and the products that are being demanded in the current situation in the country. We also understood the power of data and the importance of integrating technology in our specialization. Surely this will help and guide us in our future endeavors. Thank you so much, sir. I would also
Thank
like to thank I would also like to thank our director, faculty, non-teaching staff for continuously encouraging and supporting us for such corporate connect. I thank the entire student organizing team, technical support, and last but not the least, I thank all my fellow students without whom the sessions been successful. Wouldn't have been successful. Thank you, everyone.